Hey everyone. I know a lot of you are out there getting ready for the CCSP exam.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the biggest things you got to know is data protection.
Absolutely.
So we're diving deep today into some key concepts from the material you sent us
Right.
to help you nail that exam.
For sure.
And of course, be amazing at cloud security in the real world too.
It all connects.
Think of this like your own personal CCSP study session.
Exactly.
We're cutting through all that info overload.
Yeah, get to the good stuff.
And zeroing in on what you absolutely have to know.
That's us.
So it's like having an expert right here with you.
That's the goal.
All right, let's jump right into data anonymization.
Okay, good one.
You might think, oh, just remove names, personal stuff, easy, right?
Yeah, you'd think so.
But there's this study from Carnegie Mellon. It blew my mind.
It's wild, right?
It showed that even like your zip code, your birth date, even just your gender,
seemingly harmless stuff.
they could use that to identify 87% of people in the U.S.
87%.
That's crazy, right?
It is.
So even if you think you've scrubbed the data clean,
yeah,
someone could still figure out who it is.
it's unsettling.
And this is huge EE for the CCSP exam.
Definitely.
They're going to test if you understand the difference between de-identification,
Right.
which is that basic removing obvious identifiers,
The surface level stuff.
and true anonymization, where it's basically impossible to figure out who the data belongs to.
Exactly. That's the goal.
Okay, so it's not just a quick fix.
Yep.
You got to know the different levels of data protection.
And when to use them.
And speaking of which, the material we have mentions 2 specific ways to anonymize data.
Oh, yeah, the high pay A standard.
Those are super important.
Especially in healthcare, right?
Exactly, dealing with all that protected health info.
It's sensitive stuff.
And you can bet the CCSP exam will ask about them.
Oh, for sure.
So one way is using statistical analysis,
Right.
making sure you can't trace the data back to a person.
That's the idea.
And the other is the safe harbor approach.
Yeah, that one's specific.
You have to remove 18 different data elements.
Like social security numbers, birth dates, even zip codes.
Wow, even zip codes.
They can reveal a lot.
So even if a piece of data seems harmless on its own,
Right.
if someone could combine it with other stuff to figure out who it is, it's got to go.
Gotta go.
Makes sense.
It does.
And here's something important.
Okay, what's that?
Both for the exam and D for real-world work.
Okay.
The best way to protect data
Tell me.
is to just collect less of it in the first place.
Less is more, huh?
Exactly. Less data, less risk.
The CCSP loves that idea.
They do. So moving on, let's talk about data obfuscation.
All right, obfuscation.
This is where we get into disguising the data.
Like hiding it in plain sight?
Yeah, you make it so no one can read it without the right key.
A secret code.
That's a good way to put
I
it.
try.
So the material lays out 3 main methods:
Let's hear 'em.
hashing, tokenization, and masking.
The class.
Each one has its own, pluses and minuses.
Right.
And the CCSP might ask you to pick the best one for a situation.
That's how they get yo.
Okay, so hashing.
Yeah, hash
It
it.
turns data into a jumbled mess of characters.
Makes it basically impossible to reverse.
But if it's one way, why do we even worry about attacks
Good question.
if you can't reverse it anyway?
Well, there are these attacks, like rainbow table attacks.
Rainbow tables.
Yeah, they try to find weaknesses in the hashing. Like, imagine the attacker has a table of common values,
Okay.
and they know the hashes for those values.
Oh, I see.
So they compare that to your hash data.
And they can figure out the original info.
Potentially, yeah.
So it's like a cheat sheet for breaking the code.
That's a good way to think about it.
Definitely got to brush up on that for the exam.
Good idea.
Okay, what about tokenization?
Ah, tokenization. A little more elegant.
How so?
It replaces sensitive data with a random token.
A token
Yeah, like giving someone a code name.
instead of their real name.
Exactly.
And the cool part is it's reversible.
If you have the lookup table, that
So
is
you can get the original data back if you need it.
precisely.
But that lookup table, that's got to be super secure.
Oh, absolutely paramount.
Okay, so more secure, but with its own challenges.
There's always a trade-off.
And then we have masking.
The simplest one?
Seems pretty straightforward.
It is basically just redacting stuff.
Like with X's or something.
Exactly.
So not as fancy as the other 2.
No, but still useful.
So we've got these 3 tools for obfuscation,
3 options.
each one with pros and cons.
I gotta know them all.
Sounds like the CCSP could really make us think,
Oh, they will.
like making us compare these methods
right.
or picking the best one for a situation.
Yeah. It's all about applying the knowledge.
All right, now this one is really interesting.
Okay, hit me.
Data loss prevention, or DLP.
DLP, I like that one.
It's like a digital bodyguard for your data.
Protecting it from getting out?
Yeah, no unauthorized exits.
What's that analogy?
So the material explains how it works.
Right.
It covers both host-based and network-based systems.
Two main flavors.
So host-based DLP is like having the bodyguard right on the computer.
Guarding that specific machine.
And network-based is watching the whole network.
Looking for anything suspicious.
Exactly.
Nice.
There's this great example.
Yeah, what is it?
They used a tool called Spirion
Spirion, okay.
to scan for a social security number.
Oh.
And guess what?
What?
They found them in a file called roster.csv.
Sneaky.
You never know where sensitive data is hiding.
That's why you need DLP.
And it shows the two main things DLP systems do.
Let's break it down.
Pattern matching and watermarking.
Two key techniques.
Pattern matching is like having fingerprints for sensitive data.
Looking for those telltale signs.
Yeah, the DLP looks for specific patterns like credit card numbers or keywords like top secret.
Gotta catch those.
And watermarking is like a tracking device.
So you can follow the data.
You can see where those sensitive documents go.
And who's looking at them?
Exactly.
Clever.
So DLP is vital for any organization.
Especially with all this cloud stuff.
Data is always moving around.
All over the place.
Accessed from different devices.
Gotta keep track.
And for the CCSP exam,
Oh yeah, the exam.
knowing DLP is key.
Essential. Really?
You might get asked to pick the right DLP controls for a situation.
Could be a tricky one.
Or analyze how well a DLP solution is working.
Gotta be prepared for anything.
So DLP, powerful tool against data leaks,
Absolutely.
both in the real world
Uh-huh.
and on the CCSP exam.
Can't forget that.
So we've talked about keeping data safe in different ways.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
Anonymizing it, obfuscating it, guarding it with DLP.
Keeping it all under wraps.
But are there any other strategies we should be thinking about?
Well, this is where things get interesting, especially from a CCSP perspective.
Oh, how so?
Well, we've talked about protecting data like when it's just sitting there.
Data at rest, right?
Yeah, and when it's moving around.
In transit?
Right. But what about when you actually need to use the data?
Good point.
Especially in the cloud where everyone's collaborating.
Yeah, you're doing computations and all that.
Exactly. So how do you balance, being able to use the data?
With keeping it safe.
That's the million-dollar question.
I bet.
And the CCSP exam is all over that.
They love those tough questions.
They do. And there's this technology that's becoming a big deal.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
Homomorphic encryption.
Homomorphic encryption.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
It is, but it sounds cool.
But the idea is mind-blowing.
Okay, I'm listening.
Imagine doing calculations on encrypted data.
Wait, what?
Yeah, without ever decrypting it.
So you can use the data without actually seeing it?
In a way, yeah. It's like...
What? It's like what?
Like doing surgery without opening the patient up.
Whoa, that's a good one.
Right. So you're saying I could analyze data, search it, even train machine learning models, all while it stays encrypted.
That's incredible.
It is, and that's why it's so huge for data privacy.
And security.
Especially in the cloud.
Because you could send your data to a cloud provider to do computations, but you don't have to worry about them seeing your actual data.
Exactly. It's a game changer.
Okay, I can see why the CCSP exam would love this.
Oh, they're all over it.
But if it's so great, why isn't everyone using it?
Well, it's still pretty new.
I figured.
And it has some challenges.
Like what?
It takes a lot of processing power.
Oh, I see.
Which can be expensive and slow.
So it's super powerful.
Yeah.
But it's like resource intensive.
Exactly. Like it needs its own power plant.
That's a good way to put it.
But don't worry, researchers are working on making it more practical.
They better be.
It's evolving quickly.
Good, good.
So it's not mainstream yet.
Okay.
But definitely keep an eye on it.
I will.
And for the CCSP exam,
Right.
make sure you understand the basics of how it works.
Okay.
The benefits and the challenges it still has.
Got it. So not a perfect solution yet,
No silver bullet.
but a powerful tool to have.
Absolutely.
Oh, and the material mentions something else.
What's that?
Secure multi-party computation.
Ah, SMPC.
Is that related to homomorphic encryption?
They're in the same family.
Okay, how so?
Well, with SMPC, you have multiple parties.
Like different people or organizations?
Yeah, and they want to do a calculation together,
Okay.
but they don't want to show each other their own data.
So they're collaborating but keeping their data secret.
Exactly. It's like a group project where no one sees the full picture.
Okay, I need an example.
Okay, imagine some hospitals.
Okay, hospital.
They want to do a research study together,
Makes sense.
but they each have their own patient data.
Which is super sensitive.
Obviously.
And they can't just share it
Right, but they need to analyze it all together.
to find, important medical insights.
Exactly. So what do?
I'm guessing this is where SMPC comes in.
You got it.
So they can pool their data without revealing individual patients.
Precisely. It's like a virtual collaboration space.
That's pretty amazing.
It is. And it has big implications for cloud security.
Because in the cloud, everyone's sharing data.
All the time.
But security and privacy are still super important.
Can't forget that.
So SMPC lets you do both.
Collaboration without compromising.
Very cool. Are there any other examples of how it's being used?
Oh, yeah. It's gaining traction in blockchain.
Blockchain, that's hot right now.
It is. Think about things like secure voting systems.
Okay.
Or online auctions where you need things to be fair.
Right, but you can't reveal everyone's votes or bids.
That's where SMPC shines.
So SMPC and blockchain, they're like a team.
A powerful duo.
Both using cryptography to build trust.
And security.
That's awesome.
It is, and it's part of a bigger trend.
What's that?
Towards decentralization and privacy.
Those are big words.
They are, and they're key themes in the CCSP exam.
Okay, so we've covered some seriously advanced stuff today.
We have.
Homomorphic encryption, SMPC, blockchain.
The cutting edge.
I'm feeling smarter already.
But let's not get lost in the details.
Good point.
Because the CCSP exam is all about applying these concepts.
To real-world problems.
Exactly. It's not enough to just know what they are.
You have to know how to use them.
To solve real cloud security challenges.
Like imagine you're designing a cloud app.
With sensitive data.
Right, and the exam asks you how to protect it.
That's a classic question.
So I'd have to think about anonymization, tokenization, DLP.
All the tools in your toolbox.
Even homomorphic encryption and SMPC.
The big gun.
And I'd have to explain why I chose each one.
Based on the risks and the requirements.
So it's like a puzzle.
Building a security defense.
And the CCSP exam is testing if you can put the pieces together.
Exactly.
So I need to go beyond just memorizing stuff.
Rote memorization won't cut it.
I have to really understand why these methods matter.
The why is everything.
But with all these fancy technologies,
yeah.
Are we forgetting about the basics?
That's a good point. You can't forget the fundamentals.
Like what?
Things like strong passwords, access controls.
Oh yeah, those are still important.
Absolutely. And vulnerability management.
Making sure your systems are up to date.
Those are the cornerstones of cloud security.
So it's about layers.
Layers of defense.
You combine the new stuff with the tried and true.
A defense in depth strategy.
And the CCSP exam loves that idea.
Oh yeah, they eat it up.
Okay, so it's not one or the other.
Nope.
It's about using everything you have.
To create a strong security posture.
Makes sense.
It does. And with that in mind,
yeah,
I think it's time to move on to our final topic.
Okay, what's that final topic?
Well, we've talked about all these amazing technologies. But the CCSP exam isn't just about knowing the what.
Right.
It's about understanding the why.
Yeah.
And a big part of that why is understanding the threats.
Like the real-world threats these technologies are supposed to protect against. Data breaches, right? It seems like every day there's another one in the news.
You're telling me it's a constant threat.
And I bet the CCSP exam wants to know if you can handle those threats.
Oh, for sure. They'll test your ability to analyze the threats and pick the right security controls.
So it's not just about knowing what data anonymization IS or how DLP works.
Nope.
I need to be able to explain how those things can actually prevent a data breach.
Or at least minimize the damage if one happens.
Okay, so how would that look on the exam?
They might give you a scenario like a company moving their data to the cloud.
Okay, a cloud migration.
And they'll ask you, what's your data protection strategy?
So I have to think like I'm actually in charge of security for that company.
Exactly. You got to protect that data every step of the way.
From storing it to processing it to sending it around.
That's the life cycle.
And that's where all these concepts come in.
Anonymization, obfuscation, DLP, encryption.
Even those crazy ones like homomorphic encryption and SMPC.
They all have a role to play.
This is starting to make sense. It's not just about knowing the individual pieces.
Right.
It's about how they all work together.
Like a puzzle, a security puzzle.
To protect against data breaches and other threats.
You got it.
But with all this focus on tech, are we missing something?
That's a good question.
Like, what about the human factor?
Ah, yes. The human element. Can't forget about that.
Because people make mistakes, right?
All the time.
Weak passwords, falling for phishing scams.
Leaving their laptop at the coffee shop.
With all the company data on it.
It happens more than you think.
So even with the best security tools,
the fanciest tech,
it can all be undone by human error.
That's the reality.
So what can we do about it?
Well, the CCSP exam recognizes this.
They do.
Oh, yeah. They know that security awareness training is crucial.
Teaching people how to be safe online.
Exactly. Strong password policies are important too.
And clear rules about how to handle data,
It's about creating a culture of security.
where everyone understands they have a part to play. Okay, so it's not just about the technology.
It's about people and processes too.
It's like having a high-tech security system,
Top of the line.
but leaving the front door wide open.
Not very helpful.
This has been eye-opening. It's really about the big picture.
It is connecting all the dots.
Technology, processes, and people
All working together.
to keep that data safe.
That's the goal.
I feel way more prepared for the CCSP exam now.
I'm glad to hear that. Remember, data protection never stops.
It's a journey.
Stay curious, stay engaged, keep learning.
Great advice.
And to everyone out there studying for the CCSP exam, good luck.
You got this. We're rooting for you.